Welcome back. A new bill banning tattoo discrimination could be coming to New York City. Councilmember Shaun Abreu announced Intro 702, a bill that would make it illegal for New Yorkers with tattoos to face discrimination at the hands of employers and landlords. So far, the bill has received support from council members Natasha Williams, Justin Brennan, and Kevin Riley. NYC Councilmember Shaun Abreu joins me now to discuss how this bill could change the lives of many New Yorkers. Councilmember Abreu, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, can you tell me a little bit more about this bill and who it could protect?
Yeah, so this bill would ban discrimination on those who wear tattoos. And this would apply in the context of employment as well as housing opportunities. This would protect those who have tattoos and those who are expressing themselves artistically. We feel very strongly that your job is very important. If you're able to do the job, is very important. And if you have a tattoo, why should the employer care?
Right. And I think it's also pretty amazing. It's pretty much going to protect millions of New Yorkers because so many people have tattoos. Now, I want to know what inspired you to actually advocate for this. Just what gave you the idea that this should be, kind of made into a bill.
Well, we have a lot of constituents who have expressed anxieties over having tattoos when it comes to work, especially, and so it's something that sprung us to action, and we worked together with my legislative director to work on this bill. But the impetus for it came from one of my constituents who feared that he was being discriminated for having a tattoo. But the anxiety is felt very broadly throughout the district.
Now, I think many of us know that tattoo discrimination is common for employers. It's honestly something that we're taught probably like in high school. But I was surprised that, landlords were also participating in this kind of discrimination. Can you talk more about how people are possibly being turned down for housing because of how they just look or how they decide to express themselves?
Yeah, and look, it's we hear it a lot in employment, but we've had about a case or two where folks also feel that as well in the context of housing. Uh, Whether you're applying for one or the other, housing or employment, the fact of the matter is that the biases and the discrimination still is very rampant. And who cares what tattoo you're wearing inside your home, right? Who cares if during the application process you're also sporting a tattoo? And basically, we're just trying to eliminate all forms of discrimination. And what's at the core of all of this is job security, it's housing security. And we're protecting jobs, we're protecting housing. And that is of fundamental importance.
Now, can you talk about, you did say that, the reason why you even wanted to push for this was because many of your constituents have talked about, having this anxiety. Can you just give us some examples of, maybe some ways people have been discriminated against because of how they decided to express or, appear to the world?
Yeah, I mean, just whether you have a sleeve on your left hand or on your right arm, rather, these are things that employers pointed out, and in one specific instance, and that was what I found to be very problematic on the part of the employer. And so here we are introducing this bill, and it's been received with a lot of excitement. The reception is very positive, and we're just pushing forward.
Now, I also want to know, does this apply to maybe more like professional career paths or, people who are going to work in retail or restaurants? Are they also facing that same discrimination?
Yeah, right now, from what we could tell, it's pretty broad, not unique to a specific industry. But that is something we've observed, and we're hoping that that really doesn't continue to exist, that discrimination, no matter what industry you're in. But that's something that we're examining very closely.
Now, people often have tricks to avoid discrimination during the interview process. But once they get the job or apartment, do you know if they face consequences if those tattoos are seen at the workplace?
In under this bill, so far it's very broad. In that whether it's at the hiring phase or at the phase of you signing a lease, or if it's during employment or during your living in an apartment unit, so far the protections would exist in both, and we find that to be very important to the bill for the protection to exist during employment and during your housing experience.
Now, people have very strong opinions about whether tattoos belong in the workplace. Do you think there will be any backlash from employers or landlords?
So far, the reception has been extremely positive. It's been I've been just stunned about the reception we've been receiving on this bill. Many folks feel heard right now, and so we're going to leverage that excitement to really counter whatever opposition we're facing. That being said, we're looking forward to the hearing process whenever we score that hearing, which we hope to be soon. And when we score that hearing, I'm sure all voices will be heard. And as lawmakers, we will rely on that information to execute on policy.
Now, with bills like the Crown Act, which was a bill aimed to end hair type discrimination in the workplace, more people are questioning what is considered professional. Are ideas about what is considered professional or just professionalism, do you think they're outdated in 2022?
I think they're outdated. I do think they're outdated. Um, whether you have, a butterfly tattoo, whether you have something that reminds you of your family who passed away, artistic expression comes in many forms, and we have to respect that and honor that, because at the end of the day, rather, you can't lose your job over some discrimination on one's artistic expression. And that for me is something that really sticks with me. And I want people, when people think about this bill, I want them to think, what does it matter if someone is wearing a tattoo if they can still do their job? What the biggest concern is for someone to lose their job, not be able to provide for their family because of the way they're expressing themselves to themselves. And that is something I want folks to think about.
Now, as I mentioned, there was the Crown Act that was meant to help people, with, tight, coily, natural hair. And because of that, a lot of people have also been saying that the ideas of professionalism are often steeped in racism and sometimes even classism, or maybe even ageism. Could you talk about that a little bit more and what you've seen and, whether you agree with that or not?
No, absolutely. There's been discrimination on natural hair, for instance. That's insane to me, beyond me, that it happens. But the way that the way folks get age as well as some discrimination we're seeing in the workplace is also rooted in what you just described. And we have to eliminate all forms of classes, this versions of discrimination.
Now we're starting off with tattoos, but there are so many ways people like to express themselves, which can consist of dyed hair, piercings. Do you see this potentially extending to those other forms of self-expression?
Well, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here now. uh, I definitely look. I support people wearing piercings in the workplace too, right?
Hmm.
Again, I think that the basic protection here is the basic idea behind all of this is you should be able to keep your job. You shouldn't have to lose your job because you're wearing a tattoo or because you have a piercing, right? It's arbitrary. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself here. We're excited on focusing on the tattoos. I'm sure folks could argue that it could lead in that direction, but right now I'm focused on the tattoos.
Okay, got it. Thank you for clarifying that. Now, does this proposed bill consider any exceptions, or how do you guys plan to address that?
Yeah, so that's something that I will also want folks to understand is that we believe is also a balanced bill in that if you have say a swastika tattoo or some kind of hate speech, or something that is considered to be like extremely offensive, as determined by the Human Rights Commission, um, that will not be permissible behavior under the bill. But again, these are be decisions that will be made by the Human Rights Commission, not one that will be made by legislators. Human Rights Commission is made up of experts, and we believe that they're better equipped to make decisions as to what gives rise to a hate speech, what gives rise to offensive language.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because I didn't think, of course, we're thinking of self-expression. I tend to think more positive things, but there may be cases like that. So I'm glad that you brought that up so people can know that there may be some exceptions in the event that, employers or landlords run into people with those types of tattoos. Now, how can people just learn more? I know it's very new, but how can people learn more about this?
Yeah, so right now we are working with organizations, and we're working with labor, unions, that is, to expand this message. So we build up a broad coalition. But the folks can reach out to my office at any time to stay connected, right? They can reach out to me at my social media account, CM Shaun Abreu. They can reach out to our legislative director, Jaleesa Quigley. Her email is jquigley at council.gov. And that is something that will be very important to be involved within the legislative process, and so that we can keep you informed on the hearings. And if you're excited about this, write to us so that we can incorporate you into this process.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.